Our unspoken words, they make us sick. I'm going to spend the next 10 minutes or so talking about how, when we're eating our words, how that creates dis-ease within the body. As we start doing this work, we start microdosing, we have practices to raise our consciousness, to raise our awareness. Maybe we start a meditating practice. Maybe we start a breath work practice or start doing yoga. So we're starting to cultivate more awareness around our thoughts, around our truth, around the heaviness on our heart. And then we can realize what words we're eating. And I'm a big believer, again, that these unspoken words, they make us sick. But there's also an importance to have discernment. And it's something that I'm waking up to, Matt. Hey, Matt, just because it's true, it doesn't mean that it needs to be said. So I think that it's supremely important that we journal and we put these thoughts onto paper and we start to reconcile, and we have a plan, maybe even strategy for how to remedy our situation, how to speak our truth. And if we're in a position where we can't, I just put out a full episode about fawning, about how that's a trauma response. Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And to fawn is to be a people pleaser. And so often people pleasing is eating our words. And I know I did for the longest time, and that made me really, really sick. I look at pictures of me back in 2013 and 2014. I was 240 pounds, 50 pounds more than I am right now. I had man boobs and a red face because of inflammation, and I just felt horrible in my body. And I was maybe cut off from my authentic truth, cut off from the words. So I wasn't aware of the words that were making me sick. Maybe I was, but I just didn't know that there was another way. And there was there was nothing that felt safe to proceed and to move forward until I started doing psychedelics. It was 2013. I remember September 4th, 2013. I think that was the year. It was the year when I had my first high dose experience with psilocybin. And it was incredible. One of the top 5 most expansive, important experiences of my entire life. And for me to, this is funny. I was out on it was Monday. It was on Labor Day, and we had off, and we're out drinking beer on Lake Michigan. We all had off on Monday. Must have had 17 beers that day. I do not encourage people to do that, to drink like that, but that's how we rolled in Chicago. And I'm from Wisconsin. I was given a 12-pack or 6-pack when I was a teenager that was whining about emotions. This is how we process emotions here. But yeah, so I had this powerful experience with psilocybin, and my friend Terry, let's call him Terry, we had the same amount of alcohol, the same amount of mushrooms. And while I was having a mystical experience, it felt like I had an extension cord coming out of my hip and was plugged into the earth, and I could actually feel plugged into the universe, and I could actually feel for the first time in my life. That's what it felt like. It was one of the more beautiful experiences of my life that really informed my shift and my transformation. But while I was having this incredible experience, Terry was obsessively cleaning his fridge on his boat. And I remember looking at him like, dude, that's the 9th time that you've wiped the ketchup down. Like relax, just be and so again, we had the same amount of medicine, and we're having 2 very, very, very different experiences. And so again, that was the genesis of my psychedelic journey. That catalyzed everything. And from there, I started to incorporate self-awareness practices. I started to meditate somewhat frequently. And the next thing I know, I was creating my freedom from bullshit incorporated, and finding a way to free myself from this toxic codependent relationship, business relationship, where I was stuck and living this loveless career. Loveless, it was just about the money. There was no intrinsic value. There was no way that I could spin it that I was doing anything good. I did love my team that I was working with, but there was, and my clients, I loved serving my clients, but there was no value that I was offering society. And that I know had with it a heavy toll. We get this one precious life, and to go big and to be of service. And as Steve Jobs says, we try to make a dent in the universe. We try to do big things and to do special things and to be of service and to help people and to have our actions be rooted in love and connection and truth, as opposed to constriction and BSing and a trauma response. So back to discernment. Yes, there's a time and place to say something. Just because it's true, it doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to be said now. This was a big insight that Dr. Dan Engel, we had him on the podcast early on in the journey. He's one of the foremost thought leaders around psychedelic integration. I remember when he had said, hold the gold. So often when we have these big experiences with a macrodose or microdosing, I think microdosing with the practices can be just as transformative as the high dose, as the ceremonial journey. And it's going to be more subtle. But there's nothing lost in translation with the microdosing versus the macrodosing. And I remember Dr. Dan saying, hold the gold. And it was his directive to hold on to your truth. You don't necessarily have to share it right away. And I came back after my ayahuasca journeys in late 2014, early 2015. I didn't tell anybody for 3 to 4 months that I had this experience. There was so much judgment about this and fear that they won't understand. So I wanted to understand it myself before I talked about it. So that was something that I kept very close to myself strategically. These unspoken words did not make me sick because I was plotting a plan, and I was journaling about things, and I was strategizing. And again, I had discernment. So discernment is really, really important as we're cultivating awareness. We're priming prosperity pathways, opening up our vision and creative vision. And in doing so, we're going to come across a lot of potential obstacles and maybe some pain points. Maybe there's something that needs to be said about somebody that hurt you in the past, or perhaps you realize an unhealthy power dynamic. And again, as we're cultivating this awareness, we're raising our vibration, and we might start to see, whoa, that this is a toxic situation, and I am a people pleaser to this person, and I'm fawning, and this is a trauma response. This is not healthy. This is not adaptive. This is not a person to grow with. This is not a person that I can open up and be authentic with. So hopefully there's some directive. I've heard a lot of people talk about the challenge with discernment as they start doing this work. So I thought that I would put together a short video around discernment, and to remind people too that these unspoken words, they do make us sick. And I think that again, and there's a little caveat there. There's unspoken words without kind of consciousness, without these practices, without a game plan, without strategy, without, again, we're working towards a goal where maybe we have that tough conversation. And I know for me, sometimes these conversations in the past, they would have taken some time when I was doing some deep inner work. I would be working towards that maybe with my therapist, and sometimes these things would take some weeks or months even till I would feel comfortable or strong enough to say the thing or to confront so-and-so about a past regression. But I do think that it is important. I know on my personal journey that started everything, when I addressed my family about the childhood trauma that happened to me in the early years of childhood development. And it was something that was really important to me. And I knew that this was, that I had to say something, and that if I didn't, I'd be a coward, and in the eyes of my Creator. And I knew that this was something that was important. And I was just tired of living a lie, and tired of just again, this wasn't my burden, mine to carry alone. So hopefully this might inspire you to reframe some heaviness that might be on your heart, might inspire you for aligned action where you start speaking your truth, and to know that hey, if we don't do that, eventually in time, these unspoken words, they will make us sick. It's like this thought energy, these thoughts ricocheting around in our mind, and the very nature of not speaking our truth is constrictive. It's not expressive. It's not. We're playing small. We're dimming our light, and all of these things are not aligned with our truth. At the end of the day, as I think Carl Sagan said, we're stardust dressed as matter, so we have to act like it. And when we're dimming our light and ignoring our truth, ignoring our intuition, our body is going to pay for it in the way of dis-ease and sickness and affliction that happens. So hopefully this will inspire you to speak your truth, and to have some context and some potential strategy around a way to do that, and so you can free up that energetic bandwidth for new aligned blessings, for creative vision, for priming prosperity pathways, for living in alignment with your soul's calling. Thank you so much for listening. For more on the Worth the Fight book and mission and message of hope and healing, check out worththefightbook.org. Thank you so much for tuning in. So much love to all of you. Love and peace. We'll see you tomorrow.